When I say pull the trigger, obviously I mean punch someone. I don't mean actually pull the trigger.
You said Chicago. So
yeah. Well, even anywhere. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, especially after that Nipsey Hussle guy got killed. It's like,
That's crazy.
That's so sad.
Yeah, on video too. They have the
Jesus
fucked up.
Christ.
I'm not a hip hop fan at all, but apparently it was very positive, like anti-violence. Like it wasn't like a thuggy rapper that was promoting drug dealing and gang violence, which I don't really know if even people do that as much anymore.
I don't know, but by all accounts, this guy was loved, and he just, it's just beyond fucked. Just like that is still going on in this world.
It was, if I'm not mistaken, he got into a fight with a guy, right? And the guy came back with a gun.
I don't know.
And shot him. That's what I read. I think it was like I don't know if it was
along those lines. Something along those lines.
Because when you hear about a hip hop artist gunned down, you're like, oh, is this some long-standing beef? And who knows? But I think it was literally a fight that these guys got in, and the guy came back with a gun and just fucking started unloading, which is it's brutal. That's literally how my father died. Literally, well, except with a knife, which is a much more hardcore way to do it. But my dad was outside of a strip club at 4 o'clock in the morning, got into an argument with a kid, like a 16-year-old kid. And they got into a fist fight. The kid came back like an hour later with a kitchen knife and stabbed him. That's that. And it's like, God, it also takes a different type of person to kill. I'm not the kid in the hood who's just ready to pull the trigger and punch somebody. Like I'm not. I grew up in a weird way where it's like I was taught like, well, you wait till they throw the first punch, which is a terrible strategy. But that's sort of the way that it was always like fist fights in the parking lot with your friends. You weren't trying to really hurt each other. It was you got into an argument over a video game and you went out back in the parking lot and you beat each other up for 2 minutes and then that was that. But guys that are willing to kill somebody over whatever, just an argument, take their life completely without any, just even, they lose sense of the repercussions of it as well, which is sort of like, that's something that I think would separate most people and go like, all right, well, I don't want to go to jail. There's cameras.
I think a giant chunk of it is how what experiences they have growing up. Like what happens to them? Are they abused? Are they beaten? Are they around a lot of violence? Like what are they exposed to? And then how much more likely are you to commit that violence?
Yeah, to push that onto the next person.
That's really what it is. I mean, that's the vast majority. I mean, it's not a shocker that so much violent crime comes from poor neighborhoods. It's like it makes itself. It makes itself.
Of course.
It's almost like a virus.
I agree. And I grew up, my mom was extremely abusive. And I grew up with around a ton of violence, a ton of physical and emotional abuse, verbal abuse, always the threat of violence. At the drop of a hat, it was always immediately to, I'll beat the shit out of you if you don't do what I say.
Right.
Even if she wasn't being violent. And I go the opposite, dude. With my son, dude, my son, I've never even spanked him. I've never smacked him on the hand. I've never even really yelled at my son. And I don't think that I got lucky and have a good kid. I have a great kid, but I think it's a direct, correlation to me not being aggressive with him.
Right.
At all.
Right. Yeah.
And I talk.
Talking is huge, right? Have little conversations with them. Don't just tell them what to do.
Ask them how they're feeling.
Yeah.
You have to give them the why. If they don't understand why, that just in general in life, people just in general, if they understand why something, there's a real purpose there, and then they do what they're doing, with that purpose in mind. Yeah. And I think when little kids, they're so malleable, and sometimes it's annoying for them to ask why 2 or 3 times, and it's easy to lose your patience. But what you realize, I'm a piece of shit. I'll admit, I'm the first one to admit it. But the only good thing I do, I think, is the fact that I'm creating this good little person. He's a really good, sweet person that I think is going to be, all the shit that I didn't really have, or, all the good qualities that I think I could have maybe had if I was raised the right way, I'm trying to give my son. And I think that's a really big responsibility. And that's why, I feel bad when you see like real violence like that, like fucking people that are like being really, you're like, dude, I know that person experienced some crazy shit.
100%.
And it's not their fault in a weird way.
And it's definitely not. I never lived in the worst neighborhood in the world, but I lived in a shady one for quite a bit. We lived in this place called Jamaica Plain, outside of Boston for about a year. My parents knew immediately we had to get the fuck out of there. I think we stayed maybe a little over a year. and we got out of there as quick as we can. But there was like a lot of break-ins, it was lower income. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't like a gang violence, shoot 'em up type shit. But there was a lot of criminals. There's a lot of shady shit.
Shitty
fights.
poverty. It does. You don't have to. It doesn't have to be like gangs. It's just shitty. Dude, poverty makes people do crazy shit.
It does, and it makes. I was never around kids that were that aggressive. Like kids were always trying to fight me, and I just moved there. We just moved there from Florida. And I was like, "Fuck, I got to get out of here." And this is what led me to martial arts.
How old
really.
were you?
13.
Okay, so you were
Teenage boy,
almost a man. I mean, you're going through puberty at this point. That's that's a scary time.
And there was all these kids that were they had already fucked. They were already doing drugs. They were
These
drinking.
are is this
in
like
Jamaica Plain?
Low income white or
white and Puerto Rican, like but mostly white and Puerto Rican. Was a lot of it. Just a lot of cigarette smokers. At 13, kids were smoking cigarettes already. They were drinking all the time.
I used to light my mom's cigarettes for her when I was like 10.
Is that crazy?
I swear to God.
Greg Fitzsimmons lived in a house with two parents that were chain smokers in an apartment, and they never opened the windows in the winter.
Are you crazy? My mom never.
Just think
There's
about that.
no sense. My mom smoked her entire pregnancy with me.
Me too. Mine
Dog.
too.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. And look, once again, she doesn't know, kind
didn't
of,
know,
but
man.
they knew.
They sort of knew.
The jury was out on smoking while you were pregnant, I think, in 82 when I was born.
Oh, yeah, for 82. I'm 67. Your mom has zero excuses.
Oh, I thought you. I think.
My mom was in the 60s, man. They didn't know shit.
Yeah, I guess in the 60s it was like you had to read a book.
Yeah, and she
it
was
a
only 20. You know,
Yeah,
just
my mom
stop
was
and think
22.
of that. My mom was 20. Like, that is crazy.
Imagine that. How old were you when you had your first kid?
Crazy. 40.
You're 40. That's so perfect.
Yeah.
Such a perfect time. I was 30, which is it's too young, and I think my mom was 18 when she had my sister.
Yeah. It's just the act of no matter when you start it, if you started at 20, if you started at 40, the act of raising another human being, it just changes who the fuck you are. It just does. It's like everything switches and gets weird. And then you're like, oh, I'm responsible for shaping your life and at least helping to shape your life. And if I do a good job, you'll be a good person. You'll go out there and you'll make more good people and you'll meet good people, which is really what everybody wants. At the end of the day, everybody wants